Oh boy. An ugly win is better than a pretty loss. I am going to try to be positive, but my goodness, there are some factors that could make this a potentially long season for the Dallas Cowboys. My first point is fire Matt Eberflus into the sun. What were we doing? I mean, I know that the secondary was shorthanded. Deron Bland is going to be out a few weeks. Trayvon Diggs still isn't back up to 100%. Kyer Elam was the CB2. I understand that this defense is shorthanded, specifically that secondary. But oh my goodness. The scheme was awful. They dropped back way too far, left way too much open space between the chains, and of course, Russell Wilson looked like 2014 Russell Wilson because all he was doing was just throwing moon balls to Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. That defense could not guard a fly. I could have gone for a 75-yard receiving touchdown. I'm not that fast. Like, I can maybe run a 5-second 40-yard dash, probably doing myself a little disservice, but that secondary was atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. That was god awful. There are plenty of things that have to start going right for this Cowboys defense to win football games. I said a few weeks ago that Dak could lead the best offense in the league and the defense would still give up 40 points, and today we saw that. We saw that come to fruition, and it was on display for the world to see, as much as I hate to say it. The skill positions were really great. The offensive line didn't do any favors until the fourth quarter, and so that's where I'm going to get started. Because I'm not sure if just the defensive line was extremely just that talented because they are, but Dak had zero time in the pocket through the first three quarters. Everything that I said about them against the Eagles, I'm going to take that back because they did not display that for 75% of this football game. There was no blocking. There was no pass protection. There was no run game. They were struggling really early on to create holes and give time Dak to make plays. Brian Schottenheimer was calling tons of pre-snap motion once again, a lot of play action. I love those things, but early on the play action wasn't working because the Giants' defensive line was getting to Dak Prescott insanely fast. The Cowboys cannot have slow starts. Because if the defense gave any signs of what the season is going to be, if the Cowboys start slow on offense, they're going to be playing from behind the entire game. And we can't have that. Because Russell Wilson, 450 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, man coverage, zone coverage, it did not matter. The Cowboys could not defend past the line to gain. They just couldn't. They couldn't defend the pass between the line to gain. The secondary just looked absolutely awful, and it got to a point where then the Cowboys were playing down 13-3. The offense was playing with their backs against the walls because Wan'Dale Robinson was just feasting on this Cowboys defense. We're about to close out the first half. Right before the 2-minute warning, they keep giving Dak chances because of the amount of penalties that there were today. Way too many penalties for both teams. It was unbelievable. Felt like every play there was going to be a flag. I don't know if Dak is playing on PEDs, but he's getting to the point where I don't know why he's thinking that he can fit these passes into insanely tight windows. But he can. He put that on display against the Philadelphia Eagles. He put that on display against the New York Giants. But eventually, one of those passes was going to get intercepted, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I'm going to have a heart attack watching Dak try and throw these balls into insanely tight windows. Done pretty good so far, though. On this last drive, right before the 2-minute warning, the play style was different. There was still some pre-snap motion, but there wasn't a lot of play action. It was snap the ball and get it out of Dak's hands as quick as possible. Attack in between the chains. Get it to your playmakers. Just move the ball slowly at whatever you needed to do. Find short yardages between the sticks. Keep the clock rolling. And that's what helped them. But then they score a touchdown because they find Kevontae Turpin. Thankfully, penalties definitely did the Cowboys a few favors, but they did their thing on that drive before the 2-minute warning, and then the defense actually gets a stop. Really impressed so far of what we've seen between Kenny Clark and Osa Odigizua. They've done a really good job so far, and they got to Russell Wilson right before the 2-minute warning, and they actually gave Dak a chance with the ball, but then we're right back to square one where we were at the start of the game. Too many penalties, no protection. Dak's reads are right there. He's making the right passes, but we're having drops again. Jake Ferguson dropped one. CeeDee Lamb dropped one. Now, I know that pass was definitely on a heater, so it's kind of both of their fault. I mean, Dak just put it in a cannon. It was still unfortunate, but there were some crucial drops there that gave them a chance to get points right before half. Listen, he had a solid day with 9 catches for 78 yards, but we might have to have a conversation about Jake Ferguson within the coming weeks. It just sucks that on this drive, when you have an opportunity to score, especially with the fact that you get the ball back to start the second half, you do nothing with it. There were issues on that drive that we saw against the Eagles. The Cowboys had 10 days to fix those issues, and they weren't fixed. And then they come out in the second half, and Dak throws an interception. I said that he was going to get one of them. It was going to be intercepted. And he did. It was intercepted. I mean, come on. I know you want to fit the ball to CeeDee Lamb. You want to get it in the hands of your playmakers, and sometimes you're going to force that ball. I mean, just come on, dude. They didn't capitalize when they had the opportunity to score before the half. And then within the first 20 seconds, you just give it to them. You just give it to the Giants. Thankfully, the defense decided that they understood how to play football, and they got to stop because of a turnover on downs. Solomon Thomas made a few plays right there, and they got it going. And the Cowboys did take advantage of that turnover. Javonte Williams had a 30-yard burst for the end zone. I said this last week that he could maybe be one of the best quiet signings of free agency, and he lived up to that today. He really did live up to that. Then it just keeps going back and forth. Run defense, they let Cam Scatabo get one, and the Cowboys are then playing from behind again. That's the story of this game, is the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott having to play from behind. But Dak Prescott can do it, and CeeDee Lamb can do it as well. Down by 3. Must-score drive, and CeeDee Lamb up to this point only had 3 catches for 37 yards, but Dak Prescott started feeding him. 3 catches for 48 yards on 1 drive, made some plays in double coverage. CeeDee Lamb just looked like CeeDee Lamb. I knew that he was going to find his rhythm, especially after the poor Eagles game. We saw him on the jugs machine after it. CeeDee Lamb put it on display. I was not worried about him. Was it unfortunate that, he was probably the reason they lost that game? Yeah. But I knew he was going to find his rhythm just fine. 1 drop today, and it was the one that I mentioned earlier. And guess what? They score, and the defense says, nah, go do it again. I don't know if they tried to sell Dak Prescott in the Cowboys offense today, but it seems like they did. Is Deron Bland injury, is it really that big of a deal? Or Matt Eberflus is really that bad? Which is crazy because he wasn't a bad defensive coordinator before he went to be the head coach of the Bears. And so I wasn't thrilled about the hire, but I knew there was a potential there because he was just focusing on defense. But no, it's not there. It's not. Eberflus was horrible today. It was absolutely awful because I don't know how Wan'Dale Robinson is that open on a 4th and 4 that could seal the game. He was wide open. I mean, wide open. Dak, go do it again. He does. There are not many quarterbacks who I feel very comfortable with when I need a game-defining drive, but Dak Prescott is certainly one of them. He did his thing, and he got them in the end zone. George Pickens scores the first touchdown of his tenure as a Cowboy. I mean, 25 seconds left. You figure it's over, right? Wrong. Malik Neighbors. Double coverage. Eyes covered. Just absolutely torches the defense once again and scores. There actually wasn't 25 seconds left. There was a little less than a minute because the Cowboys got the ball back with 25 seconds. And Dak was able to get it done with 3 timeouts, get Brandon Aubrey in field goal range for a 64-yard field goal to send it to overtime. Give that man what he wants. He's due for an extension. Please pay him. I remember what it was like having Brett Maher. I remember Greg Zuerlein being a little inconsistent. Ever since Dan Bailey, there just hasn't been a kicking answer Brandon Aubrey is finally the answer. Can we please not let him walk out of the door? For the love of God. And then we go to the most absurd overtime ever. Defense gets stops. Dak can't do anything. And then Russell Wilson just says, you guys take it. I don't want it anymore. I mean, I got nothing. And then with 2 minutes left, Dak seals it. Finds George Pickens for a big play. Sees the pressure. Steps up, rushes, and makes it a chip shot for Brandon Aubrey. There are a handful of points I want to make this, but I just got to say, man, this secondary is in trouble, which is unbelievable because against the Eagles, they looked phenomenal. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith only combined for 24 receiving yards. Everyone was healthy. Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs, they looked great. Donovan Wilson really struggled today. I know he had the interception that gave the Cowboys back the ball for the game-winning field goal, but I mean, my goodness. This secondary is a problem, and it's going to cost the Cowboys games. I'm surprised it didn't cost the Cowboys games. Because they're going to have to step up because the run defense looked great today. Once again. Clark and Odigizua. This is a fun duo. They only allowed 84 rushing yards. They allowed 158 last week, but the Giants don't have a mobile quarterback like Jalen Hurts. The Eagles only had 60 rushing yards from Saquon Barkley. So the run defense, there is something there. And we saw that again today. On offense, I was very concerned with the offensive line play early. I do want to give credit to the Giants defensive line because that is very talented. You got Brian Burns, you got Dexter Lawrence, and you just drafted Abdul Carter. I mean, they might be the best defensive line in football. They are insanely talented. But they didn't give Dak nearly enough time to do anything. The run game was not moving early. They just cannot get off to these slow starts, or we're going to see how the offense is going to have to play from behind because the defense is not going to do them any favors. So if the Cowboys want to make a statement early, they're going to have to score. And they're going to have to score on every drive because the Cowboys' defense is going to struggle. And after the game, they immediately signed Jadeveon Clowney to help with the pass rush. Nice get. I actually really like that. I think he can be solid. He still had 5.5 sacks last year. I know he is old. He is a much older pass rusher. But 5.5 sacks last year, if we can get something from him, that would be very beneficial because we're still looking for who can be the pass rusher since Micah Parsons left. But Jerry was kind of right. The run defense has been really solid. I'll give him credit for that. Dak looks like a top 10, at least, quarterback so far. When you throw 52 times, you're going to have an interception. And for him to throw 52 times and not have a pick would have been absolutely unbelievable. But his accuracy is there. The mobility is there. He has this confidence to fit balls into tight windows, and he always has, and it feels like it's a lot more present this season. Everything that he did against the Eagles that I praised him for, he continued to do that today against the Giants. CeeDee Lamb got in his rhythm. No worried about that. George Pickens, let's talk about him for a second. Had a pretty big day. 5 catches, 68 yards, touchdown. But where I'm really excited about what he can do is as a contact drawer. He's basically just playing the foul game like a SGA. He drew multiple pass interference calls today that gave the Cowboys opportunities to score, and he did that against the Eagles. I am very impressed with how George Pickens has meshed into this offense very quickly because it's giving them a lot of deep ball opportunities. CeeDee Lamb is getting more open. I knew this would be the case, but I still am very impressed with it. And then Javonte Williams, man, this dude, he might be a top 10 running back in football right now. Today, 130 all-purpose yards, 97 yards on the ground, 5.7 yards per carry. This dude is feasting. And I am sorry for everything I said about Javonte Williams being washed because he looks really great right now and is one of the most underrated free agent signings. But defense is once again the story of this game. The Cowboys are going to have to figure it out because now they move on to Soldier Field to take on the Bears this weekend, which could be concerning because the Bears have plenty of offensive weapons. They got DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, just drafted Luther Burden. It's going to be a real test for the Cowboys defense. They're going to have to put something together, whether that's going to be the pass rush you're going to have to step up because DeAndre Swift is not as big of a run threat. They'll obviously give it to him a few times, but they're going to look to pass the ball in this Ben Johnson offense. So there's going to have to be pressure, or they're going to have to go sign Stephon Gilmore. Something's going to have to be done against this Bears defense. Should be a good one. And make sure, if you like this video, to like, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell so you don't miss next week's reaction video right after the Cowboys and Bears game. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Fire Matt Eberflus, and until next time, this is Ty Talk Sports signing off.